Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about rates and unit rates. This is our next lesson. Some of the things you will hear kind of sound similar to what we did with ratios, and we will even pull in some of the things we did with GCF and LCM here. So I think this will be nice that we can kind of use what we've learned already to help us learn our new material here. So I just want to first talk about some of the words you've been hearing and just to make sure that we know the difference. So the first one, we've seen these pretty much your whole life so far, but fractions are numbers that represent parts of a whole or part of a set. You can see some examples here like 1/2, 3/4, 9/12. These would be fractions. Ratios are what we worked with last time. Remember, the ratios are when we just did this last week where you compared two amounts and you just use division. So this is where we say 2 out of 3 or 2 to 3. And then you can have the different notations that you write in. So for every 2 bananas, there are 3 oranges. Could be an example of that. Now today we're going to get into rates and unit rates. All right, they're not overly difficult based on what we've been doing. So a rate is a ratio, but it's comparing two quantities with different units. So you can see over here on the side, this is like if we're talking about you drive 36 miles in 3 hours. Miles and hours are different, and we're going to be using those to make our rate. So 36 miles for every 3 hours, $26 for 5 bags, 19 songs in 5 minutes. So these are different types of rates that we will be using to solve. That's what we'll be working on in this chapter. And then down here we have a unit rate. All a unit rate is when you take that rate that you already made, like up here, 36 miles over 3 hours, and you just simplify it so that it has a denominator of 1. So if we take that 36 miles over 3 hours and we divide by 3, that's basically going to break down to 12 miles per hour. So all we're doing is trying to get a 1 here at the bottom if we're talking about a unit rate. So let's get into it and let's practice a little bit. So if I were to look at this real world link here, Desiree typed a 15-character text message in 5 seconds. So it says, write the rate Desiree typed as a fraction. Well, all I would have to do here is type in 15 characters over 5 seconds. And then in order to solve this, to figure out what the rate would be, we're just going to use division here. So we're going to use division to try to bring this to simplest form. So if I'm looking at this, I'm taking my rate of 15 characters over 5 seconds, and all I'm doing is dividing by 5 because I know that 5 is a factor of 15 and 5. So 15 divided by 5 would give us 3. 5 divided by 5 gives us 1. So we know now that the unit rate is 3 characters per second. And the way I could really say that is Desiree can type 3 characters per second when she is doing text messaging. All right, let's look at some other examples. Samantha picked 45 oranges in 5 minutes. Write this rate as a unit rate. So if you look here, we wrote the rate first. 45 oranges in 5 minutes is which it says in the story problem up here. So then I have to look to see which factors go into 45 and 5, just like we did with GCF. And then I know that a 5 will go into both those numbers. So if I divide by 5 up top, I'm going to get 9 oranges. And if I divide by 5 at the bottom, I'm going to get 1 minute. All right, so we can see that they pick 9 oranges per minute. That is the rate, 9 oranges per minute. All right, this one's a little trickier because it's not going to look like a pretty division problem like we just had for the first 2 examples. So you can see here it says the Australian dragonfly can travel 18 miles in 30 minutes. How far can the dragonfly travel in 1 minute? Because we're trying to break that denominator down to 1, remember. So it says we're going to write the rate as a fraction, just like here, 18 miles in 30 minutes. And I do know that a 6 goes into 18 and a 6 goes into 30. But unfortunately, this is not going to make it 1 at the bottom. So I'm going to end up with 3 miles over 5 minutes. So it can travel 3 miles every 5 minutes, but again, I want to break that down to 1. So instead of saying 3 miles in 5 minutes, I could say the dragonfly travels 3/5 of a mile every minute. So then if you see that it's a fraction like this and you can't break it down any further, then we're going to make this a fraction and we'll put the minute at the bottom. So 3/5 of a mile per minute is how fast a dragonfly can travel. We'll practice a few of the fraction ones in class too. So write each rate as a unit rate. So let's practice here. This is the final example. Sylvia traveled 360 miles with 12 gallons of gas. So if I were to set this up as a fraction, my rate is 360 over 12. 360 miles, 12 gallons of gas. So then I'm looking at those 2 numbers and I have to think about what I can take out of those 2 numbers to make it simpler. Just with like we do with ratios, we're trying to bring it down to simplest form. Well, I know this is a big number, but I also see a 36 here at the front, and the 0 I know that 12 is going to probably go into this because I know that 12 goes into 36. If you didn't know that 12 goes into 360, you could try 2. You could try 4, right? Because remember, you're just going to keep breaking it down until you can't break it down any further. So I know that 12 goes into both these numbers. So I'm going to say 360 divided by 12, 12 divided by 12 is going to give me 30 over 1. So now I broke it down to that unit rate. So now I can say Sylvia travels 30 miles per 1 gallon of gas, or 30 miles per gallon. All right, and then now I want you to try this one. All right, so try to set up your story problem. If you need scratch paper, get that out. But Amma wants to make a new music playlist. She added 35 songs to her playlist in 5 minutes. How many songs did she download per minute? So set up your fraction, 35 songs over 5 minutes. This is our rate. And now I want you to try to break that down to the unit rate. Remember, we're trying to get this to be 1 at the bottom. If you did this correctly, you should have realized that 5 divides into both 35 and 5, which gives us 1 at the bottom, which means that Amma downloads 5 songs per minute. All right, so she's a pretty quick downloader here if she's making her little Spotify playlist, right? So Amma downloads 5 songs per minute. All right, I want you to try again here. Steph scores 44 points in 4 quarters. This is for all you Cleveland fans out there. You know I'm a Cleveland hater. So Steph scores 44 points in 4 quarters. All right, if you did this correctly, you should have set up a fraction like this. This is our rate, 44 points over 4 quarters. I know that 4 divides out of both of those numbers, which is going to leave me with 11 over 1. So then I can say Steph scores 11 points per quarter. Okay? Hopefully you're following along with these and these are making sense. Sometimes they do get a little trickier. If we have a story problem with big numbers, we can still break it down. But this is a kind of a 2-part question. It's going to break it down into 3 steps. Sorry, I know it says step 1, step 1, step 3. This is supposed to say step 2 in the middle. But let's look at this together. An adult's heart beats 2,100 times or 2,100 times every 30 minutes. A baby's heart beats about 2,600 times every 20 minutes. How many more beats does a baby's heart beat in 60 minutes than an adult's heart? So this is a lot to break down, but we have to do this in chunks. So first off, we're going to try to find the unit rate to break it down to 1 minute for an adult heart, and we want to find the unit rate of a baby's heart. So this is step 1. We're going to take 2,100 over 30, and then we're going to take 2,600 over 20 because that's the rates that they gave us. And we're going to break it down so that we can get it with just 1 minute because we're trying to break it down to the unit rate. So I know that 2,100 is a big number, but I see 21 at the front. So really with the zeros at the end, we're going to kind of think about what can go into that. So if we broke that down, it's going to end up being 70 beats per minute. For babies, it's going to be 130 beats per minute. So we can see that a baby's heart beats quicker per minute. But the question, remember, asks us how many more beats does a baby's heart beat in 60 minutes than an adult's heart? So even though we have our rates, we still have to do more here. So our second step would be after we found that unit rate to determine the number of beats in 60 minutes, we just have to multiply by 60 because that's per 1 minute. So now we have to do 60 minutes. So adults, they beat 70 beats per minute. So we're going to do 70 times 60, which is going to give us 4,200 beats or 4,200 beats. Babies' hearts beat 130 times per minute. So we're going to do 130 times 60, which is going to get us 7,800 beats. So then the final answer we want to do is we have to subtract those two, right? So 7,800 minus 4,200 is going to equal 3,600. All right, that was kind of a lot of steps. And again, I'm not expecting you to do this quite yet, but we will practice these together throughout the week. So essentially, when we're reading back to that answer here, we're going to say a baby's heart beats 3,600 times more in 60 minutes than an adult's heart. That's how you would find that answer. All right, another also might ask you to find the unit price of something. This one I actually think is a little bit easier because you're used to thinking about money and what it can buy, right? So if we were trying to find the unit price, it's the same thing except we're using money here. So let's say that it's $36 for 4 movie tickets here. All right, if I did my unit rate or unit price here, I'm just going to divide by 4, and that's going to get me $9 per ticket. So instead of saying a unit rate, we're doing a unit price, so we know that it's $9 per ticket. Okay, now let's try this on your own here. I'll get it set up for you, and then I want you to finish it. 4 potted plants cost $88. What is the price per plant? So if you set this up correctly, you should have had 88 plants or $88 over 4 plants. And you should know that 4 goes into 88 and 4. So that would break us down to $22 over one plant. So that means every potted plant that we purchase costs $22. The price per potted plant is $22. This is the last one. I want you to do this on your own. Mr. Everett's bought coffee for 9 teachers on his way to school. I was feeling generous that day. The total cost of the coffees was $27. How much was each coffee? So set this up and then break it down to the unit price. So I want to know how much per coffee. All right, so if you did this correctly, you should have written down 27 over 9 because I have $27 for 9 coffees or 9 teachers here. And then I'm going to realize, hopefully, that 9 goes into both of those numbers. If you didn't, let's say you would have tried 3, then you would just keep breaking it down until you get to the simplest form. But 27 divided by 9 is going to give me 3. 9 divided by 9 is going to give me 1. So that means the price per coffee was $3 each, which would be the unit price for one coffee. I hope this makes sense. I know this was a lot of information, but we will keep practicing throughout the week. So if you struggled with this, please email me. We can work together today and we can kind of do some more practice problems together if you need to. So just send me an email and we can get on the same page today. Hope you guys have an awesome Monday and let me know if you need anything.